The issue as to whether college athletes should get paid by the NCAA or other operations has come up numerous times in numerous years. I'll admit that the NCAA is a broken system, but college athletes should not be paid. For one, it sends a bad message. I think it's okay to just play sports for the love of the game and not have to receive a compensation for it. I think players get selfish and their interest um, goes away from the sport itself, and they're very into themselves and the money they receive. Recruiting for colleges is another thing. There would be no recruiting process if money became a factor because the players are going to follow the money depending on whether or not schools vary their budget. I think it'd take away opportunities from smaller market teams, say a team like Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls. They would have much less money than, say, a school as Florida or Miami, Texas. Um, the advantage is just too unfair, in my opinion. Um, which level or division does it end? I just can't see how it would stop at college either. High school athletes would see this and maybe wonder, why am I not getting paid? Most people that argue college athletes should get paid, they say, well, the college athlete is receiving an education, but that's not really pay. Well, a high school athlete is receiving education as well, so, I mean, where does it stop? Um, College is provided by each state. Athletes are not professionals yet when they're in college. They shouldn't be paid. Um, the purpose of college is to get an education. A very small percentage of athletes actually get paid by, or actually go into a profession of athletics. I know there's a very small percentage that go to the NBA, NFL, MLB. Getting trained for their major is much more important than getting paid to play a sport. Um, Most people argue that the athletes bring in revenue for the colleges. Well, this is irrelevant because um, high schools, they get compensation for what their athletes do for them, and a lot of small schools in Iowa, per se, they thrive on what their athletics bring to them. Maybe they wouldn't even have a school if they didn't have their athletes, so there's no reason to pay their college athletes either. I don't know who would pay for all those athletes to go to school um, or to play sports. Um, who would pay for it all? Boosters, maybe, but um, you'd eventually see the ticket prices going up just to pay for these things. And college sports is relatively affordable now, but when you compare that to professionals, I mean, you can get a decent seat at a sporting event for about $20, $30 for college, but to get a decent seat for professionals, you're looking at close to $200 to $300, and you'd see that price go up if athletes got paid in college. Again, the difference between small schools and bigger schools, I just can't see how they would be able to create a even budget or players being happy with that budget. They'd demand more eventually. Um, Obviously, men's basketball, football, they are the moneymakers for most schools. So, would you set a budget for those schools? What about the women's lacrosse players or the women's soccer team? How do you decide who gets what and who's more important? Because if you if you want to compensate players based on what they bring to the school, money wise, you wouldn't have to pay many athletes because men's basketball, men's football, women's basketball, that's where schools get their money. Um, it just seems like a very flawed system. Um, I don't think many of the people that argue for college athletes to get paid understand or have a true passion for sports. They're more so looking out for the integrity of people in general. The love of sports cannot be undermined by compensation. I just don't think that it can be justified.